And he arrived, this is where we're going to, he arrived first in Boston, and then the very next day he arrived in New York, and then there was the journey after that. But we're just going to do the journey up to his arrival in America. And for your information, there's going to be a big celebration. Come on in close, because it's lots of space over here. It's a big event for Boston, the ISKCON Center in Boston, to be the host of devotees and disciples of Prabhupada, and a big festival honoring the, I think it's 60th anniversary of Prabhupada's arrival in this month of September. So it's going to be next week, Sunday. Saturday, Sunday, weekend festival. So I'm going to be doing something like this up there. The story begins, the journey begins from Prabhupada, who's pictured here, as you see in the little caption at the top. He was a young man, 25 years old, married, going to university, and a friend of his invited him to meet a sadhu. And he said, no thanks, my father would regularly invite sadhus to our home, and frankly, I wasn't really impressed with these people. Now his friend said, no, this man is different, please come. And so because he was his friend and he was a little persuasive, he came. So the painting is on the rooftop of a building in Calcutta. Prabhupada lived in Calcutta. His family was in Calcutta. His education was in Calcutta. And this is a rooftop. And there's Bhaktisiddhanta, who later became his spiritual master. But when they first met, here's Bhaktisiddhanta's teaching or encouragement. First, he sat down and he hasn't, just his first words. He haven't, hello, how are you? How you doing? What's your name? None of that. You're an educated young man. Why don't you preach Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message throughout the whole world? No, imagine. And this was December 1936. Later, this is 22, so 14 years later, he heard the same message from his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta, in a letter. Become an English, it was like, this isn't, why don't you consider this? This is an instruction. Become an English preacher and spread Krishna consciousness throughout the Western world. Now, at this time, some of you may know. If you don't know, I'll let you know. Today, we are observing the appearance day of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Who is Bhaktivinoda Thakur, for those of you that don't know? He is the father of Bhaktisiddhanta. And he was a luminary in many ways. But one of the ways was his father, was very invested in two things. Educated people at least should know who Lord Chaitanya is and his teachings in the whole world. So, for example, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his father, in 1896, he wrote a book in English, one of his 100 books, and the title was Lord Chaitanya, His Life and Precepts. So it's a two-part book, little skinny book in English. And the first half is the activities of his life, and the second half is a summation of his teachings. And that was it. And he, out of his own pocket, he spent the money and sent it to, had it printed. And it was really rough at that time. It was offset printing, and the letters were never matched. But that's okay. It was a little booklet, and he sent it around the world to universities, like at least educated people. So that was a vision of his father, and that vision of his father was Lord Chaitanya's vision. Every town and village in the world, and his father passed it on to his son, and now his son is passing it on to Prabhupada throughout the Western world, because at that time, British Empire was still rolling strong. It was getting chipped away at by the Gandhi movement and other things, at least in England, in India, and in other places, but the British Empire was vast, and English language was prevalent. Wherever people were, they learned English because the British had their empire. They taught English. So the Western world means in English. So at this time, because Prabhupada had been singled out, Prabhupada replied in a questioning way, not a challenging way, but because Prabhupada, in this year, 1922, he was a Gandhi follower. He was like a leader in the Gandhi movement. And so he gave a Gandhian response. And the Gandhian response was, who will hear Lord Chaitanya's message? We're ruled by the British. So first one, and then two. First, become free from the rule of the British, because we go outside of India, and who's going to listen? You people are ruled by the British, and you want us to hear about Lord Chaitanya? So first independence, Swaraj, and then we are a dependent country. First, India must become independent. How can we spread Indian culture if we're under British rule? Reasonable. And now the response went on for 20 minutes. This is like, they just started the soccer game, and he kicked the ball the first time, and now it's going to be 20 minutes worth of Bhaktisiddhanta speaking. So there's just some summaries of his points. Krishna consciousness didn't have to wait for a change of Indian politics, nor was it dependent on who ruled. Krishna consciousness was so important, so exclusively important, that it could not wait. Politics are always changing, but there's one eternal truth, which is true. And some other points. Whether one power or another ruled was a temporary situation, but the eternal reality is Krishna consciousness, and the real self is the spirit soul. No man-made political system, therefore, could actually help humanity. This was the verdict of the Vedic scriptures and the line of spiritual masters. Now, Bhaktisiddhanta was a strong speaker. He said many other things. This is just some of the things. Although everyone is an eternal servant of God, when one takes himself to be the temporary body and regards the nation of his birth as worshipable, he comes under illusion. The leaders and followers of the world politics movement, world's political movements, including the movement for Swaraj, were simply cultivating this illusion. Don't go down that path. Go down the path of Lord Chaitanya. Real welfare work, whether individual, social, or political, should help prepare a person for his next life and help him reestablish his eternal relationship with the Supreme. Now, in Prabhupada's upbringing, he's speaking to a 25-year-old man. In Prabhupada's upbringing, he was born in a Vaishnava family. His father was a Krishna Bhakta. His father worshipped a deity of Radha Govinda. And the son watched his father. He also got a Radha Govinda deity from his father because he requested. So he already knew Vaishnavism. His father was an ardent Vaishnava, etc., etc., etc. So it was in his system. However, as he grew up, as it sometimes happens, as a young man, he became influenced by the politics of the time, Swaraj. And Gandhi was a powerful person in many ways, very powerful person, politically, but also spiritually powerful person with austerities and so forth and so on. So hearing these messages from Bhaktisiddhanta, it resonated. And Prabhupada spoke later. He said, from the time I was a young man, I was always the leader. And whenever there were debates, I always won the debate because I was good in debate. But I was defeated, and I was happy to be defeated because the message was right. So he accepted defeat, and it went inside, 20 minutes worth. And so the year is 1922. Here is Bhaktisiddhanta in 1933, 11 years later, giving him initiation in Prayag. And when the custom was first initiation, 1 year later, second initiation, Bhaktisiddhanta recognized Prabhupada to be such a qualified person that he gave him first and second initiation immediately at the same time. That's 1933. 3 years later, 2 years later, something that Bhaktisiddhanta, this is part of the journey, Prabhupada's journey to come to America. So he's with his spiritual master in Vrindavan. The scene in the background is Radhakund, because his spiritual master Bhaktisiddhanta did what many persons would do. They would bring a group of followers on a pilgrimage to a sacred place. Vrindavan was one such sacred place. And they would go to this place, that place, and he would describe, the importance of the places. And one of the places they were at, this painting is showing it Radhakund, because that's where the conversation took place. As you see, Prabhupada is holding the hand of his son. Now he's already initiated, Grahastha, and he's gotten this instruction twice already from his spiritual master. And now, in addition to go to the English-speaking parts of the world and take the message of Lord Chaitanya, now he's being given another instruction, very explicit instruction. I had a desire to print some books. If you ever get money, print books. He didn't hammer it, he just mentioned it. And it went in. And so that was another mandate in Srila Prabhupada's life. So that's November 35, December 36. Again, the instruction about preaching. I am fully confident that you can explain in English our thoughts and arguments to the people who are not conversant with the languages of the other members, meaning those in India have different languages, Hindi and Bengali and whatever. So people outside India don't have our languages, and going to these people, the English-speaking, the rest of the world, English-speaking parts of the world, are good for you and good for them. And he went on, I have every hope that you can turn yourself into a very good English preacher if you serve the mission to inculcate the novel impression of Lord Chaitanya's teachings unto the people in general, as well as philosophers and religionists. So again, the importance. Middle, this is Sannyas Guru. That's a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta, who was a sannyasi. And then Keshava Maharaj gave him sannyas along with another fellow on the other side of Keshava. And he gave him the name of Abhay. Abhay Charan. His family name was Abhay Day. His initiated name was Abhay Charan. Abhay Charan Das. That was his name. Then the sannyas name became Abhay Charan, or AC, Bhaktivedanta Swami. And Srila Prabhupada is pictured sitting here when he shifted from Keshigat to the Radha Damodar temple. The Radha Damodar temple, there were two rooms. And one of the two rooms was a place where he had his meal. And the other room is mostly spaces in the place where he had his meal. Kerosene, burner, kerosene, cooker. Do I need this? You all can hear me, yes? Should I use the microphone? Or you can hear okay? You're good. I'll speak a little stronger. Okay. So 2 rooms. And in this room that you see him sitting, he's looking out the window. And when he was living at the Radha Damodar temple, there were 2 rooms that the chief priest, or the panda at the place, he rented 2 rooms, like 4 rupees per month or something, ridiculous. It's very, very, very small price. But he's happy to have a sadhu staying, renting some space. So the window that he's looking out where he would sit and have his meals is, out the window was the samadhi and the bhajan kutir of Rupa Goswami. Now some of you may not know who is Rupa Goswami, so I'll help. You all know who is Krishna, and he's up here. And Krishna manifested in the previous yuga and performed his pastimes in Vrindavan, Mathura, and Dwarka, and then departed. When he was on earth, he spoke Bhagavad Gita. And then after Krishna departed, came shortly thereafter the next yuga, this one. From Dwarpa Yuga became Kali Yuga. So in Kali Yuga, the avatar of Krishna who appeared is Lord Chaitanya. I'll say it again. In the Kali Yuga, there's an avatar mentioned specifically in the Vedas. It mentions his color, his complexion, as golden. And it's Krishna himself in a golden complexion. That's Lord Chaitanya, Gauranga, or Gaura Hari. So Lord Chaitanya had associates. He didn't write, but he taught, and the associates wrote. And one of those associates was Rupa, one of the most prominent associates, next generation. Rupa Goswami received everything from Lord Chaitanya. And when he was living in Vrindavan, he had a place. Sometimes he would stay in this place where he would perform his bhajan. And next to, there you see a nice little tamarind tree next to his bhajan kutir. There's also his samadhi, because he spent time elsewhere also. But out his window, he would see this samadhi of Rupa Goswami. And he would pray for their mercy, Rupa and his elder brother Sanatan. And then his spiritual master, hey Gurudev, please give me your mercy. Without your mercy, I cannot do anything. Give me the mercy. Give me the strength that I may fulfill your orders. Because it was prophesied by Lord Chaitanya, this message would be the chanting of the holy name would be heard in every town and village, and his teachings. What is samadhi? Samadhi is a name. Samadhi literally means trance. Samadhi. And then the place where a person departs the world with their mind fixed upon the absolute truth of Krishna. Their body isn't as a tradition birth, but the body is the samadhi, the place for preserving so that future generations come and honor that person at that place. So that another meaning Bhajan Kutir, the place where he would perform his chanting and writing and other things. So he's feeling dependent, and we're all dependent. He's gifted, but he's also dependent. Suddenly, there's his writing place. Rupa Goswami appeared before him. Now, Rupa Goswami departed from this world several generations, like 400 years before. The soul was gone in that particular body, but his spiritual presence manifested before Srila Prabhupada, sitting in his room praying for this mercy. And he spoke to him. Prabhupada told this story later. Maharaj, Swamiji, don't worry about anything. Go ahead and travel to the West and preach. Just preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the chanting of Hare Krishna. You will be successful. I guarantee you, because I will be right there with you all the time. Who was born in Radhakund, he matured to be 78 years of age, and he lived right next to the Radha Damodar temple where Prabhupada was. So there was a point in time when this man was interviewed along with all the other people who knew of Prabhupada during that period of time when he was living there at the Radha Damodar temple. And when the interviewer started speaking with this Baba, did you know him? He started to cry. The Baba sees him crying. He said, never have I seen anyone do sadhana like he did. I have lived my life in Vrindavan. I have never seen anyone like him. Prabhupada did many arduous things. He worked very hard at the Radha Damodar temple. At that time, it was austere, undeveloped, with very muddy and dirty, with no facilities. Many years later, when I heard that it was he who actually had been chosen by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to spread the Hare Krishna Mahamantra around the world, I was not surprised. He wasn't in the same facility, but he lived nearby, so he had association. He knew. He said, this is part of the interview, many times in the middle of the night, at 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, I could hear him crying inside the courtyard of Rupa Goswami's samadhi. He was bending down with a small broom as he swept the ground in front of the samadhi. He was crying out, "Hey Rupa, "Hey Sanatan," same message, "please give me your mercy. Give me the strength that I may fulfill your orders." And then he had this realization, this is not just a sadhu. I mean, this is a sadhu, but more than a sadhu that's living in these two little rooms with little expenditure, but his devotion was outstanding. You know, that's the picture. This is the topic for those of you who came a little bit late. It's part of the theme of this semester. And, you know, the spiritual journey, or a spiritual journey. And this is Prabhupada's journey to come to the West, across the ocean, which also, by the way, was a no-no. In Vedic culture, for a sannyasi to cross the ocean was a no-no. It's a prohibition. Because, you know, there's not the protection of Vedic culture. So don't go outside the place where there's the protection of those that are cultured people. They're heathens, they're uncivilized, or so you don't have a problem. But he went because he was instructed to do so by superior order, and you know, at risk. So he's writing the Chaitanya to the Srimad Bhagavatam, and then he didn't have anything. He didn't have money, so he had to get to America. One of the first things that you need to get to America is, guess what? You gotta have a visa, right? And you gotta have a way to get there. He didn't have money. Let me see if I can get this going. Yeah. So he was at some program in Agra, meeting people, introducing them to Lord Chaitanya, to this project of Srimad Bhagavatam. They happened to mention at this meeting that this gentleman was confiding, but my son went to America to become an engineer. And he married an American lady, Sally, so he could have his green card, right? So they were married. Bridge was Gopal Agrawal's son. So Gopal Agrawal is pictured here, and his son Bridge is the little heavier fellow on the right. And so Prabhupada, some weeks later, wrote a letter to his son saying, "Would you be so kind as to give me a letter of invitation so I can get a tourist visa to go to America?" Because this was at a juncture of time when the visas were just starting. You know, after World War II, that everything was locked down. This country wasn't allowing people in. There were no visas. People weren't doing it. Then it just started. So he got a letter of invitation. And with the letter of invitation, he went to the U.S. Immigration Office. And look, he got a visa. So he got a visa, didn't have a passport. Got to put the visa in the passport, so he got a passport. Didn't have anything. And then, you know, how to get from India to visit Bridge, Agrawal. So in the course of his travels, he made a friendship with, this is Sumati Morarji. She was the owner of a cargo company, a steamship company, Scindia Steamship Company. So he one time, but over the course of, he developed a relationship with her by giving her Bhagavatam sets and, you know, things, and what he had to give and his Krishna consciousness. And he asked her for, in your cargo ships, do you have a passenger space? Could you give me a space in one of your boats that goes to America? And she was saying, "You're so old, you're not going to survive this sea journey. It's too cold in America, you're used to India." Swamiji, don't go. But he was determined to go because he had the mandate to go. And so she finally relented and gave him passage. So now he's got a passport, he's got a visa, and he's got a passage. So the passage was, he boarded the Jaladuta, this is just a painting, and it says Bombay, but he boarded the ship in Calcutta, because that's where it departed from. They loaded up. You see the date at the bottom right corner? 1965, August 1965. So he arrived in September 1965. More than a month later, month of sea journey. So, Prabhupada's reasoning, this is a fire that he used to promote people giving him contributions so he could print the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then in 3 volumes, Canto 1 Srimad Bhagavatam was prepared and printed. It is his thought. In America, it would be different than a sannyasi interacting with pious and influential Indian gentlemen. He would be a no one, foreigner. And there was no tradition of sadhus, no temples, no free ashrams. But when he thought of the books he was bringing, he had first canto, 3 volume, transcendental knowledge in English, he became confident. Because he's risking a lot. He has no money. Could you imagine? Picture in your mind. He's getting on a boat, going to America. He has nobody to receive him when he gets there. No money in his pocket. Where's he going to stay? What's he going to do? Big kind of books. And an ending. That's a spiritual journey. Fully in Christianity, he knew it. When he thought the books he was bringing transcendental knowledge in English, he became confident. When he met someone in America, he would give him a flyer. That's the flyer. Srimad Bhagavatam, India's message of peace and goodwill. You know, the country that doesn't know anything about Vedic culture. It may have heard the term Bhagavad Gita, but Vedic culture and wisdom, and we're busy being successful. So, India's message of peace and goodwill. So there he is, aboard the Jaladuta. And what happened, they had a Janmashtami festival on the boat. The captain arranged, asked Prabhupada to be a speaker, and he spoke something for an hour or so. And the whole little Janmashtami celebration was broadcast to Sumati Murarji, so she could, catch the Janmashtami celebration. And then, in the course of travel, the Jaladuta stalled. It somehow got stranded about 4 miles away from the coast. And then when they got to the southern tip of Cochin, they loaded up the boats. Prabhupada watched them loading up the boats. There's a photograph of the 3 volumes of first canto Bhagavatam, what they looked like when he brought them. There's a design for a cover that he indicated. He got an artist to make it. So he did all this stuff single-handedly. In the course of the next while, they're crossing the sea now, from Bombay all the way to crossing the sea. He had 2 heart attacks. Not good. And when he was in the midst of having his heart attacks, later Prabhupada described Krishna came to him. Krishna came. Previously it was Rupa Goswami, now it's Krishna came. He placed his hand on his chest. They say that if anyone gets a 3rd heart attack, they must expire. I had 2 heart attacks on the ship. And then in New York, a 3rd one, paralyzed. Left side was paralyzed. I do not know how I was saved. And one girl, that captain's wife, she studied astrology. She said, Swami, if you can survive your 70th year,
then you will live for 100 years. Well, she was wrong, but that's okay. And he described later to disciples in America after being there for some time. On the ship, I saw that Krishna was going to save me. I was going for his mission. Krishna placed his hand on his chest and reassured me. It gave him reassurance. That very night that Krishna appeared before him, he had a dream. You see in the background of the dream, that's a ship. And on the ship, there's Radha and Krishna and many holy people. And the ship was transporting everybody to the other side. All Krishna's incarnations were rowing a boat and pulling Srila Prabhupada with the boat. You see in the front of this little drawing, there's different avatars to bring Prabhupada to America. So we're almost done. Here's September 10th. Prabhupada survived the heart attacks. He was unable to eat anything for a number of days. Slowly was able to take liquid things. And feeling separation from Sri Vrindavan. And Lord Sri Govinda, Gopinath, Radha Damodar, the only solace, the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, in which I am tasting the nectarine of Lord Chaitanya's Leela. So he had the book, but he had his own personal in Bengali copy of the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya. I left Bharatapumi just to execute the order of Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Earlier you saw the photograph of the spiritual master painting. In pursuance of Lord Chaitanya's order, I have no qualification, but I've taken up the risked his life, just to carry out the order of his divine grace. I depend fully on their mercy so far away from Vrindavan. And this is extracted from a journal that he kept, like a diary. Today I dispose my mind to my companion, Lord Shri Krishna. There's a Bengali poem made by me today in this connection. There's his handwriting, and the captain of the ship confided in Prabhupada and made this sea crossing many times. I've never seen the Atlantic Ocean so calm. This is the smoothest crossing in my many years of serving in this way. His wife said, come back with us again, because it was been the best journey we've had so far, ever, crossing the Atlantic Ocean. If the Atlantic would have shown its usual face, perhaps I would have died. But Lord Krishna has taken charge of the ship. That was his appreciation. So here, this is Prabhupada visiting again sometime later after his original stop. He landed at Commonwealth Pier. So for those of you that came a little bit late, this coming weekend, not this weekend, but the following weekend, I'm going to be in Boston at Commonwealth Pier, and we're going to have a festival honoring Prabhupada's arrival so many years ago, 1965. 60th year anniversary of his arrival. So this is later Prabhupada, a photo of Prabhupada looking over a railing, looking at the docks where the ships are and so forth. And he decided when he reached, to read you the content, but on the left side, there's his own handwriting in Bengali with some comments and side notes. And while in the harbor, for one part of the day, their cargo ship unloaded some stuff and accepted some other stuff. He wrote this prayer to Krishna. I'm going to read the verses. It's very nice. My dear Lord Krishna, you are so kind on this useless soul. But I do not know why you have brought me here. Now you can do whatever you like with me. But I guess you have some business here. Otherwise, why would you bring me to this terrible place? Said Bengali. Most of the population here is covered by the material modes of ignorance and passion. Absorbed in material life, they think themselves very happy and satisfied, and therefore they have no taste for the transcendental message of Vasudeva. I do not know how they will be able to understand it. Stand up here. But I know your causeless mercy can make everything possible because you are the most expert mystic. How will they understand the mellows of devotional service? Oh, Lord, I'm simply praying for your mercy so that I will be able to convince them of your message. All living entities have come under the control of the illusory energy by your will. And therefore, if you like, by your will, they can also be released from the clutches of illusion. I wish that you may deliver them. Therefore, if you so desire their deliverance, then only will they be able to understand your message. He's at the harbor. He's on the came off the ship for half a day. He's composing this prayer generation. The words of Srimad Bhagavatam are your incarnation, and if a sober person repeatedly receives it with submissive oral reception, then he will be able to understand your message. He'll become liberated from the influence of the modes of ignorance and passion, and thus all inauspicious things accumulated in the core of the heart will disappear. How can they can understand this message of Krishna consciousness? I'm very unfortunate, unqualified, and the most fallen. Therefore, I'm seeking your benediction so that I can convince them. I am powerless to do so on my helpless prayer. Somehow or other, O Lord, you have brought me here to speak about you. Now, my Lord, it is up to you to make me a success or failure as you like. Oh, spiritual master of the world, I can simply repeat your message. So, if you like, you can make my power of speaking suitable for their understanding. Only by your causeless mercy will my words become pure. I'm sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel gladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. And then he's going to end. Oh Lord, I'm just like a puppet in your hands. So, if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance, make me dance. Oh Lord, make me dance as you like. So that's the end of his nice prayer. I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge, but I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. I've been designated as Bhakti Vedanta, and now, if you like, you can fulfill the real purport of Bhakti Vedanta. He's an instrument, helps depending upon the wielder of the instrument to make him successful or not. And that's reality. It's humility, but it's also reality. And we're ending. September 19th, he landed in America, he landed in New York, came down, this is the end. He came down the walkway, the gangplank, they call it, and he said, I didn't know whether to turn left or right. There was nobody to receive him. I mean, when I travel, there's somebody at the other end. There was nobody at the other end. There was Mr. Agarwal, who lived in Butler, Pennsylvania, and he is in New York City. You know, New York City can be a tough place for corner that doesn't have any money in his pocket. No money. What's he going to do in a foreign place? And somehow he asked me, he got passage on, went to the Port Authority bus station and took a bus to Butler, Pennsylvania. And there he stayed for a little while, and then the rest is history. But so the topic is the spiritual journey, the spiritualist's journey. So there you go. That's one of our founder Acharya, the founder of the Hare Krishna movement. There he is reading his own books, and there he is in later success in his life. He somehow Krishna decorated him with success. Then people slowly, it wasn't quickly, but slowly people began to understand his message and gave their lives. Like, I'm one. What's life for, anyways? No, it doesn't have to be, but it can be whatever the shape and form of it is. And that's what Prabhupada did. And the message of this spiritual journey. Go back to the starting slide. To spiritualist journey. 8 o'clock. Any discussion? Yes.
How would you recommend, especially as we're starting on this journey, that we start to understand what our end goal looks like in our life? And because you ended the talk just by saying it may not look like a monk and exactly like this, but how do we incorporate that kind of spiritual centeredness in our everyday life, like in our trajectory as students, as working professionals?
Because I spent a good part of today meditating on Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was a householder. He was a very accomplished person. As a householder, he had 10 children. He wrote 100 books. Tried writing an article for a magazine. 100 books. He was in such a state, along with books, he wrote songs. In one of his songs, it's a song that's Siddhi Lalasamayi, is a hankering for Siddhi, spiritual perfection. In that song, he discloses his spiritual identity. So no, back to your question. The outside can look like anything. It's what's inside. So the outside purpose, you're students. So you have a purpose of being here, and that's the academic career. And it's on the other side of the academic career. You're going to be out job hunting and all of that stuff. So there's so that you can fulfill the necessities of the human form of life. But then there's the spiritual necessities. So the singular purpose, the encouragement of this spiritualist journey is, please ensure that spiritual purpose has at least a seed, and then you cultivate the seed in the course of your education and the rest of what your life is going to look like. And seeds grow, cultivated carefully. And what it's going to look like depends upon you. Choices that you make and associations that you have and so forth. I made some choices, and everyone here is going to make some choices as you go forward. And so your life is going to look like this or that or the other thing. So the outside is not what's the essence. The inside is what's the essence. parallel, just like taking the example of Bhakti. He was, during the British rule, he was a high court judge. And that didn't happen. The British rule that makes the British people appoint somebody that's going to be a judge, that's a local guy. That's not what the British did. They let their own people take those positions. But they gave him that position. And boy, did he, so he was very accomplished. So become accomplished in the material field. Become accomplished. Fantastic. And don't forget who you really are. And I assume that you wouldn't be here if you didn't have that spark. We'll say it the other way. You'd be somewhere else doing something else if you didn't have that spark. So you have that spark. So now fan the spark. Something. Start with hearing. And then from the hearing, then you speak and you engage in mantra chant. So fan the spark. Along with all the other energy that you're investing in your academic. Don't neglect it. But don't make it all in all. Don't neglect the spiritual purpose. So what's it going to look like depends on choices you make. And what's inside is going to come out. So you'll find, for example, you'll find friends and acquaintances, those that you confide in, and meaningful relationships that are of a spiritual flavor, along with they're successful. And just like before we started, I don't know any of this stuff, but there were two men up here figuring out how what we're doing right now could be live streamed. I don't know. They did it. They were live streamed from home. So be successful. Learn how to get live streamed. Learn how to, add another element to the periodic table. Whatever your field is. Whatever your field is. Be successful. Whatever it is. And that spark. And the spark. And then what's going to look like depends on the choices you make. And the association you keep and how carefully you're fanning the spark. Not too much, but the spark. But little by little, the spark. This is my spiritual master Prabhupada saying. To expand Krishna consciousness, it means finding little sparks, and he moved his hand like this, fan the spark, like that, using his phrase, fan the spark. Not too much, because you can, but then an expert person can turn a spark into a flame. And a very expert person can turn a flame into a big blaze. So according to your capacity. If Krishna so desires and empowers you, then you can do amazing things beyond your imagination what those amazing things might be. So what's it going to look like depends. But stay with it. And then as with the academic, stay with the spiritual. Don't put too much imbalance in one and neglect the other. Unless your life is meant to go in that direction, then. Okay. Somebody else would like to discuss sometime. Okay.
We are supposed to be following the 4 executive principles.
Yeah, but
This is little different from the topic. And sometimes we get some funny ideas and tend to deflect from the more spiritual.
Okay.
It's the executive principles.
Remember the audience here. These are newer people. Your question sounds like not a newer people question. What's better? It's just fan and spark means be selective about what you hear. Especially when you have discretionary time. Make sure you have some discretionary time. and hear things that are of spiritual sound vibration. You can do that. And then making sounds, some chanting, hearing and chanting. There's a nice Sanskrit Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting. You do that with your academic, but you do that with your spiritual, hearing and chanting. And then association with people, like-minded people. So make those kinds of choices, little by little by little bit. Watch it grow. Anything else? Yes.
Maharaj, what would be like an appropriate goal that somebody wants to start a journey this semester? Anticipate by the end of the semester that this is a good goal for me to have this semester.
So you're asking on behalf of all the people in this room,
And myself.
and you've been around a while. It's a realistic goal for some that's
Yeah,
just
someone
like,
who's very interested that's here that wants to start their spiritualist journey. What would be a
yeah.
realistic goal in like 3-4 months?
Well, I like, my favorite answer to a question like this is it depends. Because different persons have different backgrounds and capacities and interests. So a goal can be set that matches your capacity and your background and your interests. So commonly goals are in terms of a behavior as opposed to simply a value. Because values drive behaviors, but have a goal that's a behavior type of goal. And here's one. Here's 3. Come regularly to these gatherings and see what happens. Try not to skip. And then that's the principle in Sanskrit is sadhu sangha. Sadhu sangha. Associate with sangha, associate with sadhu, persons who are spiritually inclined individuals. And do that on a regular basis. Second is food choices. No. That's a goal. And, it depends on you. It depends. But direct your food choices towards Moto Buddhas. And maybe some of you are already there and the bell is already rung. But some of you may not be there yet, and be selective about your food choices. So if you don't know what those food choices are that are in the Moto Buddhas, you read Bhagavad Gita and it'll tell you. Or just ask one of the sadhus and they'll tell you. That which can be offered to Krishna, that's foods that are that you're good to accept. I mean, just over here at the table. Vegetarian lasagna. There's lasagna, there's vegetarian lasagna. Cauliflower. Baked in a certain way, so take food items that are in the categories of Moto Buddhas. That's a goal, if that's a suitable goal. Some persons may already be there, something. And then, a goal, another third goal, because I said 3, but a third goal could be mantra meditation. Very simple. And how much? Well, it depends on you. But that's something that I started with once upon a time. I didn't know nothing about nothing. Somebody said, mantra meditation. Sure, let me try. See where that train goes. So take 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever the time is, and like any kind of practice of yoga, I'm going to just qualify the mantra meditation this way. According to Patanjali, in his Patanjali Yoga Sutras, he defines what abhyasa is, or practice. Really simple. Practice has 3 things. There's Sanskrit terms. Every day, something. Every day, and And then for a prolonged period of time, not just 1 day, 2 days, but, for the rest of the semester, every day, something. It can expand, but at least something every day, instead maintain that something every day for a prolonged period of time. So for the semester, that's a suggestion. And whatever you can do, and then you do that every day for the rest of the semester. And then the third quality is with faith. The phrase that Patanjali uses is sat kara, which means with faith. So it's going to take me to a good place. Like yesterday's topic at Northern Illinois University was overcoming negative emotions through mantra meditation. So then I take up mantra meditation with faith that it's going to get me to where I want to go. Some good emotions can display light that can dispel darkness. Let me go towards the light. So I have faith it's going to get me towards the light, away from darkness. We had the whole thing on for an hour on this topic. So those are three. But then it could be not something other than those three, or it could be, something that matches your personality and your commitment of your time. So those are some suggestions. Food choices, association, regular association, and mantra meditation. When you're in that association, there's going to be some hearing of sound vibration, and then repeating of that sound vibration. So like reading, that's another nice thing to do. It's a fourth thing. Little reading groups. A group of some of you, 3 of you, 4 of you, 5 of you, however many, 2 of you. And, and on a regular basis, daily basis, a weekly basis, or whatever works, you read together, and then discuss what you read. Really simple. And that's the beginning. It's a goal. It's an activity that leads to, a goal, making the Krishna consciousness. So, principle. That's part of the practice of sadhana bhakti. So I don't see an abundance of hands up. Does somebody else would like to contribute something? Because otherwise, we're going to do the next nice thing. There's one hand. Yeah.
Question. Even when, for example, we are just trying to achieve one goal and we are just setting that goal.
Yeah.
Down the line, we are planning that goal. And even if someone is practicing yoga, meditation regularly, these things, all because of lot of stress and deadlines, friends and as well as corporate employees sometimes lacks in energy, which causes stress and anxiety. So they just go out of track. So my question is how to stay in the track and deliver that work within time.
So what to do with that when you get off track? That's your question? Or
How to deliver the work when
how to deal with
becoming energy.
irregularities of the world? That's your question. How to deal with irregularities in the world in which we live?
Yeah.
That's your question. Good question. Practical question. Like anything, my answer is, when something is important to you, just like you're here, it's Illinois Institute of Technology. You're a student here?
Yeah.
Okay. So you enrolled in the student because it's important for you to do your studies. So you're going to meet those obstacles in the course of your studies. You're going to do your studies because you have a commitment, because it's important to you. My answer to your question is, if you have a strong why, answer to the why question, you can figure out the what and the how. Say it negatively. If you don't have a strong answer to the why question, then distractions are going to take over. Circumstances are going to push you around. It's sometimes not. However, if the why, the purpose for which you're, making this commitment to yourself and to Krishna, very strong why. Why? It's a relationship. So it's, no matter what you do, unless it's illness or something, just some circumstances, physically this is committed. But again, internal commitments, you can maintain even with illness. So, strong one. So I recommend, if you're feeding on the third question, I recommend this is something we did yesterday. We did a little exercise. I took 5, 6 minutes to discuss, why are you here? What negative is the top of this negative emotions? What negative emotions do you experience if you don't like? Would you like to overcome them until there's a why? But positive, so be clear what the why is, and you can deal with the dualities of your life. In chapter 2, one of the first things that Krishna says about it, there's dualities. Sometimes and sometimes. The verse, mantra sparsha sukhaunteya, sitoshna sukha. That's the place where we are, basic duality. That you're clear what your purpose is. You can, not a problem. I mean, it comes and it goes. Clouds in the sky, the rain, and the winter, and the winter and summer season, comes and it goes. That's according to the season, then we go on with life. Because that's how nice things to do that are important. And there will become a time, like with Bhakti Thakur again, very accomplished worldly person and children. There's a big responsibility for a lot of suffering, etc. They have a spiritual purpose, even in the worldly thing that's doing. He didn't get lost in the worldly stuff because it's worldly. So, because there's a strong mind. Relationship with Krishna purpose. Okay, we're going to end. And we're ready for whoever's going to do the wrap up. So, here we go.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your insights on how someone can begin their journey as a spiritualist. So, say, take the first step at least. It was really insightful. Thank you for today for coming, and we want to everyone, the prasadam will be served outside, so
You want to do?
5 minutes of mantra
Go ahead.
meditation.
I'm going to tomorrow